the voice of Alabama politics, with your host, Bill Britt, and the V-Team with Claire Austin, Susan Britt, Jack Campbell, Baron Coleman, Charlana Spencer, and special reports with Jonathan Barbie. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to the voice of Alabama politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Good morning.
There has been no lack of drama, rumor, innuendo. If you are in the news business or the scandal business, this last week was the place to be, was Alabama.
It's been busy.
It has.
Holy moly.
The news that broke last week that the Bentleys were getting a divorce, Monday morning, the talk show host, the scandal mongers and the bloodsuckers were all over it with all kinds of innuendo. Susan, what are the facts we know? We'll get to the gossip later.
The facts we know is she did file for divorce. They had been appearing together on Friday morning. She had him served a couple of hours later. So apparently he didn't see it coming. She's asked for everything. She's asked for him to pay all the debt for their entire married life, anything that they've accumulated in debt, as well as alimony. And she set us that deposition date in November and says, I want it all, or we're going to go to deposition here.
Claire, this sounds like a scorned woman.
I think it was there had been a lot of rumors, but I think it was a shocker for people when this came down. And I thought it was very odd that once she filed, it immediately was uploaded to AL.com. I think that there's something about that that's very suspicious.
Well, it looked like somebody had their ducks in a row.
Right. So, I feel sorry for both sides, for the Bentleys and both of them and their children and then the woman and her family and all that. It's just,
we have tried to play it right down the middle. We have not sensationalized this at all. But I'm telling you, for her to file that divorce suit after 50 years of marriage, it's terrible. It's terrible for everybody. It's bad for the state. I mean, Baron, you've had to cover it every day.
We have. We do a daily talk radio show here in Montgomery. For the first couple of days, we did our best to try to keep callers from suggesting in the innuendos. But after a while, it becomes more than you can bear. It's gone beyond the politicos and the government watchers and the news media.
Absolutely.
It's down to the rank and file guy on the street who pays no attention to politics. This is what they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we got calls early on, even though after it hit AL and all that, saying, oh my God, can this be true? Because, Governor Bentley,
it seems like an unlikely fellow.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I think that's part of the shock of everybody across the state and, Southeast region. I mean, but, let's face it. This happened in South Carolina's Republican governor's office. This also happened in Mississippi when Bob James was our governor with Fordyce. We have seen this happen with Southern governors.
Well, I mean, George Wallace got a divorce, but of course the woman he was married to was a little wacky. And, I think,
and he filed instead of her.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I think it is, like Claire said, it's a tragedy. But there has been, as I said, enter the jackals, because there has been some outrageous things said about the Bentleys. And one of the ones I want to bring up here real quick is this Alan Farley. Representative Alan Farley came out. He was on television, on radio, on everything, anybody here, and he is after Governor Bentley's hide.
Okay, let me just add something to that. That is a orchestrated effort from some people from the Alabama House of Representatives. I got a tip on that earlier. This is Sunday morning. I'm trying to think. Somebody called me about that Tuesday because a national outlet. And they've got several people lined up. And my understanding is the Speaker has asked several House members to go out and attack the governor on all this. And that is without question below the belt.
Are these the same ones that he asked to come stand behind him at the podium while he was charged with 23 felony counts and cheer him on?
Who knows? They're going to start coming out. But he's just trying to take the spotlight off of him. But, I pity these House members that have the audacity to do what Alan Farley did.
Well, you know,
but they're doing this.
Farley, you reported it, and so did we. Farley, he really got after the governor because the governor kicked him to the curb one time because he wasn't up for the job.
Well, that's been my suspicion all along. As soon as Alan Farley came out throwing bombs at Governor Robert Bentley, my immediate reaction was, oh, the same Alan Farley who was allegedly begging for the prison commission job, who was passed over in favor of the colonel who got the job.
A bitter party of one, is that what you call it?
Absolutely, and it seems like sour grapes coming from him, but you're right. Alan Farley was on the stage with Mike Hubbard the day or two after he was indicted, cheering him on, while Mike Rogers was flame-throwing at Luther Strange, while everybody was casting all kinds of innuendo and outright statements about the political nature of that prosecution. Alan Farley had no problem with being on a stage with a man with 23 felony counts against him, but all of a sudden he's scandalized and outraged over a woman who files divorce. I mean, I'm so confused by his actions.
How do you compare those? You can't. There's no comparison.
And
somebody that gets a divorce, I don't have a problem with that. A man that's a crook that's got 23 felony counts, I have a problem with that.
Yeah. They testified in front of the grand jury, and they still indicted them.
Right. And then you got some of these other jokers, like, who was that guy that got beat for the PSC?
Terry Dunn.
Terry Dunn. Who cares what Terry Dunn thinks? He's calling for the governor to resign. For what?
Most people don't even know who he is unless you're in our circles.
Well, you've got a bunch of piranhas out there swimming. You've got the Speaker's office, and then you've got the Lieutenant Governor salivating, and her people acting like they're putting a transition team together. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
It sounds like what Claire's saying is we can expect over the next several days and weeks a drip of additional House Republicans at Mike Hubbard's direction coming out and bomb throwing at Robert Bentley.
I mean, let's face it.
Just watch and see.
Governor Bentley is one of the key witnesses in the trial against Mike Hubbard. And if he can rough up the governor, then that helps his case. But that's only one indictment out of 23.
But listen, I mean, they should be. This is a prime example of why Mike Hubbard needs to step down. We've got a budget to deal with. We've got revenue. We've got a special session. And he's playing politics behind the scenes against the governor. This is a classic example. They need to be concentrating on who's going to replace him next spring.
Well, they needed to replace him a long time ago. But I tell you that this faux outrage on talk radio and by these political bloodsuckers, it just really got my blood boiling because, you know, Bentley may have made a mistake, but he's not a crook that we know of. And we know where the crook sits, and all of those jokers support the crook. Yeah. I mean,
they voted for him.
Yeah, they voted for him, and they kept him in office. I mean, Claire, you hearing anything else up there?
Well, we go in session in 2 more days, so we'll kind of see what's going on. I mean, the one thing I think I will have to say, Senator Paul Sanford, who's from up in North Alabama in the Madison County, Huntsville area, I mean, I think we've seen a lot true leadership emerge from Senator Sanford, and I know that he has met with about 36, 38 members of the House, and they're looking at his plan. At least he's putting something out there on the table that is not raising taxes. I think it's crystal clear voters do not want to raise taxes.
Well, I tell you, between the taxes, the Confederate flag, and now the divorce, I would sadly say Governor Robert Bentley's poll numbers are in the tank. But we're praying for the family and wish them all the best. We'll be right back with our guest, Steve Flowers, who has a great new book out. You're going to want to buy it. You're watching The V.
The V is sponsored by Spot On Strategies Group.
I am honored to stand with each and every one of you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless the United States.
We have come to take our country back.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Our guest today is author, commentator, television personality, radio host, an all-around great guy, and the best political historian for Alabama we probably ever had. Steve Flowers, welcome.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me. I really look forward to every time visiting with you.
Well, you are a man of many hats, and probably no one has more stories about the political greats of Alabama than you do, and you put them all together in one book. Tell us about the book and why you did it.
Well, that's the purpose. I've been around this stuff a while. As I mentioned to you one time before, I'm not that old. I'm 63, which is not that old now, but I've been around this stuff for 50 years. I started paging in the legislature when I was about 12 years old, and I wanted to capture that era of Alabama politics. It was an era when candidates who ran for governor came to the court square with their bands, with the Big Jim Folsom came with the strawberry pickers, George Wallace came with Minnie Pearl, and people came to the square in their overalls, and everybody from the country came, and it was our entertainment. You know, I contend that we in the South, our politicians were our entertainers. You know, Louisiana had Huey Long, Mississippi had Bilbo, Georgia had the Talmadges, which were very good. But I'd compare Big Jim Folsom and Wallace with the best of them, and they were a classic era. If you put a picture, I started the book really writing about Big Jim and Wallace, and it went on. I got Heffin, and I also included in the book, I analyzed every governor's race for the last 60 years since 1946 when Big Jim won his first race, and I go in there and try to explain what I think why they won. There's several really great races in Alabama political history. Obviously, the 1970 Brewer-Wallace race was a classic, and we covered that very thoroughly. The 78 governor's race when Bob James came out of the blue and beat Bill Baxley and Jerry Beasley and Albert Brewer, the three Bs. That was a great race. And our more colorful past was probably 20 years ago and earlier. Our politicians in the last 20, 30 years have been more staid. They haven't been quite as colorful. I cover them, but the real heart of the book is the 1950s and 60s and 70s.
Well, and those are giants. You know, I mean, they're remembered. They're going to be remembered in our history pretty much forever. I mean, Hal Heflin, Big Jim Folsom, George Wallace, they were characters that not only could the people of Alabama identify with, but there are people up north, and I hear your books playing up north.
Surprisingly, I was on a talk radio show, a bookshelf thing the other night, and they were talking about some lady in Illinois was reading it. I think people a lot of times read books online, Amazon and Kindle, that sort of thing now. But I am traveling the state, and I will be through September, October, and November. And as you know, most of my columns, my readers are in Middletown and rural Alabama. I'm in almost every small town and middle-sized town, and my columns in over 60 papers, but most of them are towns like Scottsboro, Fort Payne. I'm going to be up in that part of the state in October, believe me, because that's the prettiest part of Alabama.
Oh, it's beautiful
I'm
up
going to
there.
be up in that neck of the woods in the latter part of October.
What, if you would, just take a minute or two, maybe share your favorite story or one that comes to mind or a couple of instances that you can think about.
Big Jim was so uninhibited. If you put a picture in a dictionary and you put Big Jim's picture by the word uninhibited, that'd be the funniest thing. One of the funniest stories when I talk to audiences about Big Jim, which exhibits his uninhibitedness, Big Jim liked to take a drink every now and then, and he liked to go to Mobile, and he'd come back from Mobile. And Alabama during that era was full of textile mills. And we were one of the largest textile industries in the state, and the American Textile Manufacturers Association was meeting in Montgomery. And Big Jim, as governor, was going to welcome to the state. Well, Big Jim had not seen his speech that someone had written for him. He'd been inhibited in Mobile for about a week. And so someone gave him a speech when he got in there to give the welcome to Alabama. He said, I want to welcome you all to Alabama Day. And we got 400,000 people employed in the textile industry. It means $50 a day to our economy. One out of every 6 people. He said, I'll be doggone, I didn't know that. Then he threw his speech up in there and said, oh, y'all don't want to hear that. Y'all want to hear about how much whiskey Big Jim drinks. And then one on Heffin that's just short, I'll share with you. Heffin had the greatest witch you've ever seen. And you know, the movie star Elizabeth Taylor had numerous husbands, been married about 10 times. And Heflin was on the Armed Service Committee. He and John Warner from Virginia were speaking to the NATO conference in Europe. John Warner had been married to Elizabeth Taylor. He was a very handsome senior senator from Virginia, and he'd been one of Elizabeth Taylor's wives and husbands, excuse me. And Warner spoke first and talked a little bit too long, and Heflin came up after him and he said, "Well, I'm just going to tell y'all, like Elizabeth Taylor told John Warner, I ain't gonna keep y'all very long." That's how witty Heflin was, and he had a great wit. Rabies gave me stories, but that's kind of what I want to tell, and go in there and tell these stories. Wallace had a lot of them. I had a lot of personal stories with Wallace because I had known him when I was a 12-year-old page. Yeah. And then, ironically, 20 years later, I'm his representative. Right. Because I have Barber County, and he wants to come in there, and he would call me off the floor of the House, and we would share stories. He would always say in an old deep black belt accent, he'd say, "Steve Flowers, you remember, Steve, when you were a page boy, Chauncey Sparks made me a page boy when I was a young boy, and Mr. Bassett used to bring you when you were a page boy. We both were page boys, and then he would tell me who he was kin to. Yeah. But anyway, it's an era that I want it captured. That's what the book is.
Tell me, how can we get the book?
It's published by New South Books here in Montgomery, and you can go online and get it. And all the bookstores in Montgomery have it, and throughout the state, it's at all the bookstores. So you can go online, newsouthbooks.com, or order it through me, steveflowers.us.
And you have the Kindle version where you can read it online, plus the hard copy. I thank you for giving me and Susan a hard copy signed by you. Now, where's the next spot you're going to be at on your tour?
I'm going to be around all over the September and October. My biggest events here in Montgomery is going to be October the 6th at the State Archives. We have one from 5 to 7. If folks can come to that, that's our biggest Montgomery event. The biggest one in Birmingham is October 22nd at the Birmingham Library. We're going to be in Huntsville November 18th at the Huntsville Library.
Well, I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I've downloaded it to my computer. Now I have a hard copy. I'm looking forward to it. We always appreciate you joining us. Go out and buy that book. Steve Flowers is going to entertain you and educate you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Bill.
We'll be right back with The V.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
First nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Winston, how are you today?
Good to see you, Walter. It's always a pleasure.
Good morning, Jackson. Glad to have
Claire,
you back.
Barron.
Jackson.
Jack owns more glasses than Elton John. I don't know if anybody knows that.
I don't know. No, I own as many, but unfortunately I break mine all the time.
Ah, that's it.
And I can't find them.
When I sit on mine and they are kaput.
Well, of course, I'm blind without mine, so I have to keep them on my head all the time. I want to go back to something, Jack, we were talking about earlier in the show, and that was about the 23 felony counts against Mike Hubbard. We have a simple divorce filing against Governor Robert Bentley, a very sad thing, nothing particularly scandalous about it that we're sure of. Why is there so much outrage over the divorce and nary a peep, as my mother used to say, over the 23 felony counts?
I guess it's the fear factor of Mike Hubbard. He's a tyrannical speaker who's very vindictive. I mean, and they haven't covered that hardly at all. And this Bentley deal is a feeding frenzy. And I really wish I'd been on the segment where y'all trashed Alan Farley, because I really wanted to get in there and trash him as well. He's a hypocrite. I mean, a total hypocrite. You can be on a stage loving on somebody who's got 23 felony counts against him and telling a guy whose wife filed divorce, we want you out of office. That's ludicrous.
Yeah. Okay, but back to this. Having been in y'all in radio and having done TV and everything else, you know, the mindset is if it bleeds, it leads. You know, if it's an accident, it's gory, or if it's sex or divorce or something with somebody's personal life, that's more attractive. People love that bad information. You know, indictments, you know, us politicos are into that, but.
Well, I mean, I think Mike Hubbard being charged with 23 felonies is a bigger train wreck, but, you know, people didn't see it that way. I mean, Barron, you analyze the media all the time. What do you say?
Well, the cover certainly hadn't been the same. I'll tell you that.
Oh, no question.
The one thing that has been noticeably absent from Mike Hubbard's ordeal is the call from fellow Republicans to abandon his leadership position. There's been no shortage of supply, it seems, of Republicans lining up, ready to take a piñata swipe at Robert Bentley, asking for him to step down, resign his office completely. But for somehow, it's okay. Mike Hubbard just goes on with life. He continues to lead from the speaker's chair. It's not as if he just accidentally became speaker. They had to affirmatively vote him into office. And so Alan Farley, who took the affirmative step to vote Mike Hubbard into office, now to turn around, and it's not just him, it's others. Right. We don't want to go down the list of everybody, but there are others, and I have a feeling, as you said earlier, there will be many more coming out asking for Robert Bentley's head. Apart from that, AL.com and some of these other media outlets have held themselves to a very high standard in the reporting on Mike Hubbard. Right. They'll only say things that they know for sure. They'll only after they've examined a filing. They'll only say exactly what's in there. Sometimes it seems as if Mike Hubbard's lawyers wrote it themselves. Yeah. With Robert Bentley's, I've seen 2 articles from the once venerable Birmingham News, once a Pulitzer Prize-winning newspaper, citing nothing more than unnamed sources.
Yeah, not even government sources or sources within the State House or anything, Jack, just sources.
Sources. Your
grandma?
Not even like a title of who might have said it or who they're close to, just sources.
But we all know that the media has been controlled by Mike Hubbard and his team down there. That is very obvious, and it was that way during Riley's administration. They do not want to write negative things about Mike Hubbard. They do everything they can to not do it.
Well, it's just a shame that you know, the governor is going through a divorce. They just treat him like a doormat, and Hubbard, who's charged with crimes.
I almost puked when I read his press statement from last Friday, a week ago, about our hearts go out to his heart. He doesn't have a heart. What's he talking about?
Well, I tell you, the first call I got after that said, "Do you know who the happiest man in Alabama is today?" And I went, "Well, not Robert Bentley." He said, "Mike Hubbard."
Oh, yeah, it takes the spotlight off the crook. But, I think people will, this is floating out there in the media. It'll die back down some, and then it'll come back to Mike.
Governor Bentley is going to have to manage this second special session. He's called for it to start, Tuesday?
Tuesday evening, yes.
And we looked at it today, and there's no mention of, he's not prohibiting bills on gaming. There's no prohibition in there, and basically it looks like the use tax, the rolling reserve, and some more revenue bills are what's on there. Barron, what did you see out of it?
Nothing. I mean, and that's what you said. It seems like it's just kind of the regurgitated Robert Bentley orders from the past. It does have a catch-all provision in there that says anything else that might generate revenue. Some could interpret that might mean a gambling measure of some sort. He did not include the language that he stole from Bob Riley in calls past, where he said it's specifically excluded. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, from sources that I've heard, they're not going to introduce any gaming bills.
Yeah, that's what
There's
we heard.
a potential that Senator Sanford might enter the lottery bill, but I don't know that he's made that decision yet to.
I mean, that's not that's what we're hearing as well. But it just that had that open-ended one, and then for him not to take that out of, not to say exclude that from the call, I found kind of interesting. I don't know what it means.
Well, and I heard that just yesterday that they're going to get through this next special session, just pray for it to be over, and then push all these tough decisions down the road to the general. And we've had a bad reputation on kicking the can down the road. I just hope we can get it resolved. Because with a Bentley divorce trial maybe coming up and Mike Hubbard's corruption trial, we're going to be in hell of a mess.
Well, I mean, you know, that starts, a month after we go in session next February, his trial starts.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to put somebody in as the speaker.
Well, you know, one of the things that we're hearing that Hubbard wants to do is cut the AG's budget to nothing again.
Was that a shock to you?
No, it's not a shock, but I think we need to keep reminding people that this guy is willing to cut people's budget to keep them from going after him, right, Barron?
And all he's doing is further damaging the Republican Party brand that he claims he's so loyal to and spent so much time building up. He was the chairman of the Republican Party for 2 terms, yada, yada.
It's all about him.
It's all about him. I mean, you look at, and I like some of these people, Senator Cam Ward, Republican, gets arrested, Tom Whatley arrested for domestic violence, Robert Bentley with the divorce, Mike Hubbard. I mean, the Republican Party brand is teetering right now.
It's pitiful.
And to have another inter-party war, the Speaker of the House fighting against the Attorney General over budgeting? Are you kidding me? I mean, they're going to collapse the party with this fight.
Where's Terry Latham been? Why can't she come to Montgomery and sit all these guys down
and let's say,
look, man, we got to get this under control. We're gonna lose everything we've built over the last 30 years if you guys don't get your acts together.
Where's Terry Latham? On vacation. Yeah. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You can catch us every day at alreporter.com. Like us on Facebook, watch us on YouTube, and of course, on television stations throughout the state. Thank you for watching.